were Ali, but it was granted to none. Abu Dujana inquired, O Messenger of Allah, what is its price? The Prophet said, it is to strike the enemy's faces with it till it was bent. So Abu Dujana said, O Messenger of Allah, I will take it for that price. And he was given the sword. Abu Dujana was a man of courage who used to swagger at war. He had a red band which he wore round his head. Whenever he was headbanded, everybody knew that he was determined to fight to death. Therefore, as soon as Abu Dujana took the Prophet's sword, he banded his head and started strutting amongst the fighters, watching him doing that. The Messenger of Allah said, this is a sort of walking that Allah detests, except in such a situation. Recruitment of the Meccan army. The idolaters applied the rose system in the mobilization of their army. The general leadership of the army was entrusted to Abu Sufyan Harb, who would be in the center position of the army. Khalid bin al-Walid was on the right wing, whereas Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl, was on the left, was in charge of infantrymen. The archers were under the command of Abdullah. As for the standard, a squad of Bani were in charge to bear it. Thus was the distribution of the posts of the army ever since Abd Munaf had already assigned them. This assignment had been inherited from Qusay bin Kilab, as we have previously alluded to in an early phase of this book. No one had the right to compete them with it. It was consistent with their traditions that they had inherited from their ancestors. Abu Sufyan, the general leader, reminded his men, the standard bearers, of what had happened to Quraysh on Badr Day battle, when their standard bearer, An-Nadr, was captured in an attempt to wage their anger and enmity to the Muslims. He said, O Bani Abd, you have been assigned bearers of our standard, and you know that the standard is the first thing that the enemy attacks. Should it fall, we fall down too. Therefore, I say, either you guarantee its safety or leave it for us, and we will certainly suffice you that task. Abu attempt seemed to be fruitful, for his speech made Bani so extremely angry that they threatened him and almost attacked him for that. Addressing him, they said, you want us to deliver you the custodianship of the standard? Tomorrow, when we fight them, you will witness our deeds. As a matter of fact, they fought bravely and stood fast in defense of the standard till they were all killed. Political maneuvers of Quraysh. A little time before the break out of the battle, Quraysh made some endeavors to sow the seeds of discord and dispute among the Muslims. First, Abu Sufyan sent the helpers a message saying, leave us alone to fight our cousins, and do not interfere. If you stand aside, we will not fight you. For fighting you is not a target of ours. But that attempt proved to be fruitless. What could such a wicked scheme do to those whose faith was as solid as firm as mountains? The helper's reply was undoubtedly disappointing and contrary to Abu Sufyan's expectations. The 0 hour was due. The two parties drew nearer, undespaired by the first failure. Quraysh made another attempt for the same purport, but now with the assistance of a trader called Abu Amir al-Fasik, whose name was Abd. He was called a monk, but the Messenger of Allah nicknamed him al-Fasik. Perverted transgressor, dissolute, as he was the head of ours in Al-Jahiliyyah, he could not tolerate Islam when it came. He announced his enmity to the Messenger of Allah in public. He left Medina for the Qurayshites in Mecca to rally them against the Messenger of Allah and to urge them to test out the fight against him. He claimed that he was obeyed and esteemed by his people, and that as soon as they saw him came, they would join him immediately. So he was the first one among the mob and slaves of Quraysh to show resistance. He called out unto his people, recognized them, and said, O kinfolk of ours, I am Abu Amir. Their reply was, No eyes of anybody shall be consoled by viewing you, O Fasik. Hearing them say so, he said, My people must have been afflicted by an evil after my departure. Therefore, when the fight broke out, he fought them fiercely and pelted his people with stones as well. That was how the second attempt of Quraysh to sow the seeds of discord among people of faith. This, however, revealed the great hot terror of the Qurayshites cast in their hearts in spite of their supremacy in number and equipment. The effort of Qurayshite women outwaging the zeal of men. Qurayshi women participated in the battle led by the wife of Abu Sufyan. They wandered among the rows of the idolaters taped on tambourines. I encouraged men to fight, inflamed the emotions of heroes, lancers, swordsmen, and brave fighters. At one time, they addressed the standard bearers, O Bani Abd O home defenders, strike with your sharp swords, and at another time they would wage people's zeal by singing, If you fight bravely, we will embrace and unfold mats to welcome you. But if you flee from the battlefield, we leave you, desert you, and no more love you. The combat, the two parties approached and grew very close to each other. The phases of fight started. The fight combatant was the standard bearer, Talha bin Abi Talha al-Adari, who was the most distinguished idolater. He was one of the bravest men of Quraysh fighters. Muslims nicknamed him the Ram of the battalion. He came forth riding a camel and challenged the Muslims to a single combat. People refrained from fighting him due to his bravery, but as Zubair advanced for the fight, he did not give the Ram any chance to fight, but fell on him like a lion on his camel's back, pulled him down to the ground, and slaughtered him with his sword. The Messenger of Allah, who was watching that wonderful incident, exclaimed, Allahu Akbar. That is Allah is the greatest. And the Muslims exclaimed Allahu Akbar too. He praised Az-Zubair when he said,